we go, and let me just give you a brief introduction about what is the importance and the reason for this course, and you have selected this testing. Are you in the right track or not? Let me just give a breakthrough on that, and that would give you an answer for everything. Is it okay? So now the importance or reasons for this course. There are 10 reasons that we usually find, okay, whether I have selected the right field or not, and so on. So first thing, software testing offers you opportunities to constantly be exposed with the latest technologies. Okay, so if you are a person who have come into testing, you are a very good privileged person whom you will be exposed to all the latest technology that is coming into picture. Okay, so which means, what is that? Which meaning, the thing is, any software that comes to the field, nothing comes to the market without having a tester's hand in that. So which means you will be very much aware, and you will be well versed, foreknown about what are the technology that is coming into picture, and what are the new technologies, the development that are here in the market. So this will give you a great continued changing and a learning discipline, where you can have your testing with new development methods, new platform technologies, and all the innovations that are coming on the way. So which means what, as you know that today we are getting into many new software products that are coming in the market. So it will give you an exposure to all these kinds of technology. So to be a good tester, you will have to learn about the business of the customers, and it is of the customers. And in short, if I should say, it will be good if you can understand and what they are into. Suppose, for example, if they are into finance guys, if they are into banking, or if they are into healthcare, and it would be good to have as what, to understand what their functions is all about and what they are into. Okay. Secondly, software testing is a creatively demanding job. So without a software testing, there is no software at all. You understood what I mean? So without a software testing, there is no software testing. There is no software at all. So software plays a very vital role in today's market and in the world. And secondly, see, it is a much needed profession. Why it is much needed profession? So when you know to do a particular testing, it is good to have some, as I told you earlier, we should be having some good technical skills on the IT, on the testing, which we will be learning it from our course. And as I told you earlier, it is good to have some domain knowledge as well. And one of the most very important is, you should be a very talkative candidate if you are a tester. So which meaning, healthy communication is always very essential and very necessary, and if you are into a testing. So which means, in communication, you must be well versed in writing as well as in making a uh, verbal language where it is very stronger, meaning where it is very explanatory, where it is very convincing to the customer and to your clients. You understood? So these are the three things that you need to have it on your this one. And secondly, software testing is a challenging and a rewarding profession. So as I said earlier, uh, see, as a tester, you are a bridge between the development and to the customers. Okay, so what do you mean by development? See, a company has taken up a project to develop and to test and to release the product. So as a tester, you have a very vital role to play among these customers and for your clients and for your company that you are working for. So you are the guys who are going to bridge. Developer is not going to go and talk with the customers, but as a tester, you will be having a very everyday interaction with the customers, and you'll be sending out the reports to them on your execution, on any kind of your findings or anything that you have done. So it is a very challenging job where you will, sorry, so where you will have to be a bridge, communicate, and your communication should bridge the gap between the customer and your company or the development. And now, If I should tell you a great interesting fact is software testing is a well compensated profession with an ample opportunity for fast paced career advancement. So what do you mean by that? It is if I should take an example of me, I started as a developer and then I came on to testing. One reason was that I loved testing in 2002 and so on, and then I had to switch it over and took that as a challenge because I started my career with a client who was in healthcare, and then I switched on to banking. I have to learn banking. The domain knowledge, have to have some possess some domain knowledge and banking, and then when it came to testing, it had a very good growth on my career as well, where it also compensated me so good. So, what do you mean by that? So, if you assume that if you are joining as a graduate trainee engineer on testing, you have a growth as a test engineer, next a soft senior test engineer, and then a project lead for your QA team, project manager for your QA team, and then as a delivery manager and as a QA lead or country delivery head. So you have such a paced growth, a steady growth in your career as well. Okay, on your testing aspect, and plus you will be compensated if you are a very good thought leader, and your challenges and your innovatives will take you higher up in your career. Okay, so these are the things that as a tester, I think I have made you very comfortable as to is that a good decision that you have taken for as a tester? Okay, and few more things that I would like to cover. So as I told you, if there is no software testing, there is no software at all. Without a testing, software is worthless. See, assume that we are buying products today, be it a cell phone or be it a refrigerator or washing machine, everything. So if the assume that as soon as you switch on, if your any of your product, your commodity is not working or it's not even starting up, obviously we go mad, right? So which means we will say the product was not tested properly, please replace it, is what our demand is. So usually what happened is the company they just have a sticker on their product before they release saying QA passed, which means quality assurance is passed, testing is done, so you can use our commodity. So without a testing, software is worthless, and software testing does not make any software. It Software testing does not make any software, it makes the software usable. So as a tester, we are not creating any kind of new software for the customer or for the market, but we are making the software usable, or we makes it very user friendly. All right. So, what are the topics that I'm going to cover? I have designed it here. We have on module one, we'll be having a deep dive session on introduction to software testing lifecycle. That would be our session today. In this module, you will understand history of testing, what is testing, why testing, what is a defect, testing principle, QA and QC, what is the objective of testing, when should testing occur, what is the role of a tester, and a high overview on SDLC, different lifecycle models, and overview on SDLC and testing activities. When was this testing came into picture? The primary method of testing in early 50s was just debugging. You must be knowing debugging as a developer. So they'll have to go one after the other coding, and they'll just debug where is the error, why this function is not properly working, and meaning they have to go one after the other lines of code, and then they were doing some kind of debugging. Why this code was not generated, why is this is not executed, why is this output not coming? So for each and everything they started doing check out in the codings. So but in during 17s, testers started breaking down the code to find holes and gaps. So even if you don't understand anything on this coding debugging and all, I'll explain you as we have a deep dive. So you will have more understanding. So in during 17s, testers started breaking down the code to find holes and gaps. See, for example, let's say that there is something has to go recursively 10 times or 20 times. Okay, so or an auto generation of the serial number. So once when it comes to 101, and then it should automatically it should generate a next number 102, and then it should be 103. So auto generation of code should take place, and I have set up a condition that it should go up to 120. Assume that if my code stops at 108 and it is not getting auto generated, so what the tester, as a tester or as a developer, what they used to do, they will immediately open up the code and they will check where that is it is stopped, or why the code is not getting generated, what is happening. So they'll break down the loop, and then they will check it out where the hole is, where the gap is, why it is not moving on to the next value. Okay, so for each and everything, this is what been happening. So there was one guy who said Glenford Mayer suggested to distinct debugging and identifying and removal of bugs in code. So what he did, Glenford Myers, he said, why do you guys want to go and break down the code and remove all your bugs in code? So rather than that, let's have a team called as testers and let them start doing all this kind of testings, and why developers should do all this testing. So, and from there it started a word called software testing. You understood? So in the prior, in 70s and 50s, it was a developer who used to break the code, who used to get into the system, why it was not working, why, what is happening, and they will be doing some root cause analysis. Okay, so only when this guy who came, who made a very distinct statement, he said, so the debugging, identifying, and removal of code, bugs in codes can be done with the developers, and then let's have form a team where testers can do testing. So now, why is this testing required? So as it covered you up in my first slide, so this testing, today we have variety of devices, operating systems, and browsers exist. So since everyone are using computers and laptops, you must be knowing what is this browser and operating system. So if I should say, for example, there is one calculator which may work in Windows operating system and may not work in Linux or something else. Okay, so how to identify that? Why? So we'll have to do some kind of compatibility testing. You understood? So the application that is working with one Windows may not work in sorry the browser. So the application that is working in Google Chrome may not work out in Firefox or Safari or Mac machines and so on. So as a tester, we will have to test if any kind of application that comes into our hand, we have to ensure that this application has been tested across all the browsers, all the operating systems, and you have to give a confidential level, this application is good to go. So we will do some kind of compatibility, we call it as a term called compatibility testing. Okay, so there are chances that a user will do things which may not have considered. Secondly, why is testing required? So see, once when the application is rolled out, you may not know, some customers, they'll be very crazy, without reading any kind of operation manuals or anything, they'll immediately do as they want. See, for example, I'll tell you, when I was a faculty in 97 for one particular college, and we had, it was at that time where this computers started booming up in India, computer courses, and out of which so enthusiasm, one elderly person was around 50 to 53 years old. He wanted to learn some computers, basics of the computer. So what happened was, we had an application called Do More that will give you the basics of computer, what is computer, why computer, and what you can do with computer, just a very basic level introduction. So as a basic introduction level, in those days, we Windows was also, Microsoft was introducing Windows. New version was 3.1, 2 point something. Since that was so expensive for that company, and our guys were purchasing the products that can run in DOS. So we had this function running in DOS, and this guy, and there it appeared in the screen. It was asking, "What is your name?" Just the beginning of the course. So this guy, he was folding his hands like a school student, and he was saying it out, saying, "My name is Arumugam. My name is Arumugam." And we as a faculty, we got panicked, and we were wondering what is happening with him, because there was no voice recognition during those times. And then we went and checked out what he was doing. Then he was saying, just repeatedly he was saying my name is Armugam, and then we had to go tell him, sir, it is not that you have to tell out your name, but rather you have to type your name on the keyboard. You understood? So these are the crazy things. I'm just giving you a small example, okay, what can be crazy things that customers can do. So which means you will have to do a kind of testing, negative testings, okay, putting your shoes in the feet of the customer, and you'll have to do all your kind of testings, okay. And then thirdly, few things that work with one user may not work with hundreds of users. Let's first say, for example, if you're logging into one particular user ID, or let's take a bank example. Uh, in the morning, in the earlier time when the bank came up with their new softwares, accessing our to understand our balance and to know the balance and to see our statement and so on. In the beginning time, I'm talking about 10-12 years back, if one customer in the early morning, the banking software will be very fast, and it will be so fast and speed where you will get access so at a fraction of a second. But as the time goes, by 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, as the users more number of users log in, and you can see a drastic speed getting reduced, okay. So which means it can work with one user, and at a time, if there are hundreds of user log in, and then the speed and the everything will come drastically come down. So even that has to be tested. So few things that work with one user may not work with hundreds of user. I hope you understand what I'm meaning. Okay. And fourthly, application will crash when software is not coded correctly and could affect other programs within the same directory. See, this is one example. Let's, for example, uh, we have the banking software. I'm just quoting out some banking example, because since we are every one of us are very aware of this banking software, where we do some fund transfer, we check our balance statements and so on. Okay, that's the reason I'm taking up this banking example. For example, let's say your account summary page is not working properly in one particular site, okay. And if your account summary is not working properly, or it's not showing you out the balance of how much you hold in your have in your account, you will not be able to go for the other module where you want to go for a fund transfer. You're you understood? So if this account summary, if you're not able to see the balance of what is there in your account, you may not be able to transfer any fund, use that option of transferring the fund. Understood? So due to that, what will happen if there is an impact on the other module as well? So here we call it as a kind of integration, one module having a connection between another, or one module expecting an input from the previous module, or the other module expect an output from another module. So all this have to be having an interconnection between this module. So if in case if there is one particular module is not working properly, then it would impact the other modules which are relying on each other. Okay, so now in the fifth statement, every component of the system must function together. As I told you, if application summary is working, obviously fund transfer should also work. If fund transfer is working, then you can also find out where paying your credit card module should also work. You understood? So there is some interconnectivity. Lastly, we have to ensure that the software for what it was created should do what it is expected to do. How do you conclude this? The very simple. You have to ensure all your requirement specification or the client requirement is all met in the software or not. So how do you do that? Here we play a very vital role. We will be checking out each and every functionality by writing test cases. I'll cover up that in a detailed manner. Just understand that. So you have to ensure, based on all the documents that the user has provided, you have to ensure that the software is working accordingly. So what do we do as a tester? We owe the best quality to the user. You understood? Why is testing necessary? software, as I told you, software is likely to have faults, and we have to ensure that, as I told you, that your module or your application or everything, it is working as per the requirement that is provided by your client or your customer. So secondly, why it is very essential, you have to understand the reliability of the software. See, today in the earlier days we had Nokia model phones that were in the market, okay, and it was a symbiont. But now when Android came, everyone switched over to Android because it was so user friendly, okay. So earlier times Nokia was it had its own feasibility, and it had its own functionality. But once when this Samsung came, or this Android mobiles came, we all went behind that because we wanted to have some extra other activities like playing games and this and that and so on, where Nokia didn't have such kind of facilities in those times and earlier in 90s. So and you need to understand the reliability of the software. Even when Android came in the earlier times, there was many failures that happened, and where they had to do some enhancements and do some maintenance, where they wanted the customers to rely on their product or their commodity. So when there was some in the initial stage when Android came, there was many functionalities were not working properly. So what happened again, Nokia came up with some new model, and Nokia market started booming up. And when they understood Android people, and then they had to do some enhancements, and where they wanted the reliability of the customer towards their product. You understood? So this is the reason that we need to have a testing properly done. Now, thirdly, failures can be very expensive. What do you mean by failures can be very expensive? See, the earlier the defect that you identify, the expenses will be very less. So the late that you take to identify your defects or your bugs, it will then the cost of the application would be more. How do you do that? See, for example, once when you do a testing, as long as it is the application is in the hands of testers, yes, in the within the company, if you raise a defect or if you identify a bug, then you can go and tell them, sir, there is a bug, there is a defect, and please fix it up, because the product has not moved into the market. For example, let's take the refrigerator. If they are doing some refrigerator the company, if they identify there is a dent or there is a scratch mark, and you can say this button is not working, freezer is not working. So within the company, when the tester identifies that, and if that is rectified before it is rolled to the market, then the the cost is very less, the expense is very less. So assume that if tomorrow, without identifying all these bugs, if the refrigerator has rolled into the market and has gone into the hands of customers, now you tell me what would happen, what would be a situation. Either your customer can sue you against you for releasing worthless product, or then he may demand for a new product, or he can go for any kind of extent step he can take. You understood? So which means the earlier the defect that we identify, the lesser the cost is. So once when it is moved to the production, and if they find out the bug or a defect, then it will cost you more. Okay, so as it covered in this one, you can being avoid sued by the customers. And now, why is testing necessary? If you want to have a continuous stay in your market, yes, obviously testing is very necessary. Here the big picture of the testing. So what is this? Bugs. Any kind of software problems that you identify, the term that is provided is called bugs. Okay, I'm just giving you at a high level. A good software tester needs to build credibility and possess the attitude. See, as a tester, one of the main important criteria is the attitude, that you reveal yourself either to your customer or to your management or whatever it is. See, why do I impress more on the attitude? So any developer where he doesn't like the tester, that's a big it is a tug of war since the testing started. uh, it is a big tug of war between the tester as well as the developer. Okay, developer doesn't like the tester at all, if I should make it a very open statement. The reason is he always thinks they have their ego problem. Okay, the developer, if you go and tell them, boss, what the software, the application that you released has got a bug, please fix it and send it to me immediately. So obviously he will say, no, we did a testing and it was working fine, so it is not our fault. Perhaps you would have given a wrong input and you got a wrong result. So that would be the attitude of the developer. So at those particular times, you have to be maintain a cool pace and make the developer understand by the means of taking a snapshot, taking or record the session or record the application where you encountered, or write in detailed way what did you do and how this bug or the defect came. Everything you have to maintain that cool pace. So unless and until you give them a solid reason in a very good manner, then developer will not accept. So that is the reason I'm saying you have to possess a very good attitude when you are moving around with people. You understood? So what is that? So as a good tester, what are the things that you need to have? You need to be explorative, ensure you are thinking outside the box. Okay, thinking outside the box. Let me just tell you an example which I quoted earlier on the person who was saying his name to the computer in 90s. Okay, my name is Armukam. So which means there was no voice recognition during those time for the software. So what happened, we also sent a suggestion to that particular company during those times, saying that it would be very much appreciated if there is a voice recognition system, which would also helpful for the clients or for the students who are using your application. So please try to do some enhancements. So that's a way of explorating. You understood? So a good tester should have an explorative. And secondly, troubleshooting. See, you should always, as I told you a word, think outside the box. So what is the troubleshooting? Take for example the banking software, your security. Okay, and whatever you log in earlier times, everything will be stored in the cookies. So what we can do is, you can go enable the cookies and double click it, whatever the last screen that you have left out, and that you can easily open. Okay, so there was no security. So as a tester, you have to do all those kinds of troubleshooting. I'm just giving an example or the meaning of the troubleshooting. Okay, so what would happen if I do this, what would happen if I do this? So you have to do your ifs and buts should be more while you're doing your testing to find out any kind of bug. As a tester, your attitude is to break the code what the developer has developed. Okay, just on a ridiculous note, I just want to tell you one thing that happened in my real time. Since I told you that I was a developer in the beginning in 2000, so I just wanted to switch over my career to testing. So I tried many companies, and during those times, testing was not so famous in India in 2000. So I tried many things, and then finally I studied some of the testing courses and then appear for an interview. And one question that the interviewer asked me was, Emmanuel, what do you think a tester should have? What kind of attitude he should have? So, and then I told him, sir, my wife is a developer, and I always have an attitude to break whatever she develops. Understood? It could be ridiculous, but that's the attitude that we should always possess. So whatever they develop as a developer, you should have an attitude to break it. Got it? And what is that relentless? See, you must not get convinced immediately. If the developer say, boss, this is not a defect and this is what we tested, and so it is not a defect, never get convinced with whatever the answers they give. So you need to be very strong enough to prove yourself, boss, this is the defect that I encountered during the time of testing. Please follow these steps and you will also recreate those defects. So never get compromised with the developers unless and until it is proved properly. And now you must be you should have some creative thoughts. So what is a creative thought? So for example, you can also suggest your way of putting your things to the customer or to the management, saying, why can't we use these steps, why can't we use that step? For example, uh, see when how can I explain you? So in this calculator example, Earlier time we had the scientific also. When the scientific came, everyone was suggesting we are not able to find out, make it's not user friendly. So they suggested up saying, okay, let's divide into two. Okay, so let's make click on the scientific and only scientific will come. Click on the standard, only the standard screen will come. So that's a kind of a creativity. Okay, I'm just giving you an example. Okay, so this kind of ideas, innovative thoughts, you can always provide to your uh, clients as well as for your management. And nextly, you must be very diplomatic and persuasive. Sometimes they will say, "Arey yaar, oh, this guy has found some problem. Okay, let's put on for hold." Okay, and they'll forget, and you will also forget. So any kind of defect that you are identifying or anything, you ensure that you are always behind those developers to unless and until it is fixed. Okay, so what would happen if all of a sudden, if the client tomorrow comes and asks you, hey, Mr. XYZ, what happened to the defect that you identified? Has it been fixed or not? We have to release it tomorrow. So if you don't have an answer yes or no, then you will be into problem. So always ensure any kind of defects that you identify, you need to be persuading with the developer and get that solved. Find and fix the bugs at the earliest. So now I told you, you need to always be very fast and swift to find, identify and get the bug fixed at the earliest, because that would cost the client and the company a lot, and your reputation of your company for whom you're working will also be on stake. Okay, so goal of a software tester is to find bugs and find them as early as possible and make sure they are fixed. Next, testing is context-based and risk-driven. What is this all about? It requires a methodical and disciplined approach to finding bugs. So this seems to be for the new guys who have joined the testing, could appear to be very Greek and Latin. Don't worry, I'll teach you what is the method and what is the approach that we will have to take up to find the bugs in a coming session. So don't worry about that. So that is the reason we say testing is context based and risk driven. Now, what is a bug? It can be an error, fault, and a failure. A person makes an error that creates a fault in the error and that can cause failure in the operation. Any person that makes an error, what would be the impact? It would create a fault in the software. And what is the output result? Then it would cause a failure in the operation. You understood? So I told you an example. Project manager left me and gone. So that was an error, human error. So what happened? Yes, obviously the customer, when he saw that message, it created a panic in him. Okay, he was not understanding. Because of that, what happened? He was not able to know what was his balance, and he was not able to do any action on that, and that was a fault. You understood? So later, what happened? And that created a failure in the operation and created a big havoc in the organization. So the bug is nothing but a person who makes an error would create a fault in the software that would lead to a cause of operation, failure in operation. Now, answer me some question. The probability that software will not cause the failure of the system for a specified time under specified condition. So when I talk about the reliability, see, earlier time what we used to do in the time of 2099 when I was a developer, many people, they used to come and ask to do write some program for them. Okay, for example, like in Excel sheet, I used to write some macros for them for maintaining their income and expenditure accounts and so on for the household. That's how I started my development. Okay, so what I used to do to have a solid income, we used to give them a kind of expiry date. Okay, so this Excel sheet program should have to work only for 6 months. After 6 months, they have to come back, and then we will extend their time. So only at that time we used to make some money. So that's what is happening at the high level today. McAfee antivirus, they'll give you an expiry time for 1 year. So after 1 year, you'll have to renew your account. Okay, so at one particular of time, it will go down. So your reliability is what? Assume that we have taken it for 5 years subscription. Okay, so up until 5 years, your software should work, which means you are relying on the software for 5 years. What would happen if within a year's time, if your software is not working, it says that it has expired, you have to renew your software? What you would think? You will say, okay, I am not able to rely on this software because I have took it for 5 years, but the software has closed down in 1 year. You understood? So the failure of the system for the specified time, whatever you say, whatever has been provided, your software should work. You understood? So that's the reliability. So now, can a system be fault free? I have given the answer there itself. So it can't be a fault free. Anytime the system can uh, have a fault, or there could be a bug at any time. Why? Is because today I have written a program and I have released, which with an expectation that this should work in Windows 8.1. Now, tomorrow, Microsoft is coming up with another version, 12.2 or something. When this Windows is installed, sometimes your software can go cranky because of the operating system that has come newly. You understood? It is not depending on the software that has been developed by the developer, or it is not the fault of the tester. It can happen at any time. You understood? It can be either through a compatibility issue with your operating system, it can be through a compatibility issue with your browsing, and so on. Okay, so it cannot be a system fault free. Can a software system be reliable but still have faults? Yes, obviously. It can have some faults, but it can be resolved. Okay, is a fault-free software application always reliable? Anyone who will come up with a guarantee and say my software will work for any time, any moment, anywhere, any continent, don't trust those guys. They are cheating you. So never trust them, because anything can happen at any time. Why is this software? Why is there a fault occurring in the software? There are two things that I have categorized. One is, see, first you need to understand all software is not done by any angels or God made beast. Okay, we are all mere human beings. So there could be an misunderstanding in the requirement document. Okay, that could have led a fault in the software. And secondly, people will have skill but are not perfect, so they may say they are very skilled enough in writing some good codings, but they may not be very perfect. As I told you, one syntax error can also create an issue and can lead cause of failure. Okay, and thirdly, we do make mistakes. How do we make mistakes? So we interpret something. We might have gone to the meeting in the morning, and client would have told you something, and your understanding could be different, and that would have caused an error or a fault. Okay, so how to overcome this? Okay, this could be an interview question. How do you overcome this? One thing is, any kind of meeting that you go, ensure that you are taking minutes of the meeting during the course of the meeting with the client. Okay, and ensure and that you are communicating to the client saying, hello boss, this is what my understanding from the meeting, and please correct me if I am wrong. So you can furnish all your details, the understanding, whatever you have understood from the meeting. Okay, so this is how we can overcome. So if they ask you a question in the interview, how do you ensure that your understanding is proper or not, you can simply say them. So during the course of meeting, or by reading the document, the requirement documents, I will always ensure to communicate to the customer, this is what my understanding is, and you can furnish in a detailed manner, and please let me know if there is anything that I have misunderstood, and correct me if I am wrong. Something, if you'll be on the safer side, wherein that you are seeking out for a clarity, and then you have got a clarification from the customer, and your testing will be through. You understood? Then secondly, under increasing pressure to deliver to strict deadlines. See, what will happen is tomorrow, at the earliest stage, it is happening in the real-time scenario. Okay, sometimes the customer would give you, this should be released in 6 months timing. Okay, but in second week he would come and say, no, 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 6 months time, we want this software to be released in 3 months timing. So what would happen? Drastically your timelines are reduced, and you will have to work like anything. He would say, okay, cut down this functionality, cut down that functionality, let this functionality go for the next release, but let's release for this within this 3 months of time. So due to under pressure, okay, and due to deliver strict timelines, there are always chances where a software can encounter any kind of fault or an error. And secondly, see, if you see this line is very apt. Systems may be incomplete. See, developer, he would have come up saying, he would have drafted a plan. Okay, since we have 6 months of timing, okay, I have to finish this module, this, then I have to, after finishing the completing the module 1, I have to go to module 2 and module 3. But all of a sudden the client would come and say, I don't want module 2, you come up with module 1 and module 3. That's what is required. So what would happen? He would have written something, and this would have not, this would be incomplete. So he has to do some patch up work over there. So due to the strict timelines, your system, since it is incomplete, there could be a fault in the application. What do software faults cost? So what would happen if there is a fault in your software? As I told you, it is a very huge loss. It would create a large impact, and it is an inconvenience. I explained, given you much detailed description. Let me repeat it. A huge loss. If you are, the earlier the defect is identified, the cost is very less. If the fault is identified, the defect is identified after the production, and the company has to undergo a huge loss and very large impact. Very large impact in the terms of the company's reputation. First is the your client's reputation. Second is, it is the reputation of the company for whom you're working as a tester. And thirdly, it is an inconvenience for everyone. Either you will, as a tester, you will have to face your project management, and as a project management, they have to face the client, and the client, they have to face the customer, and they have to convince them. So it has got a tremendous impact across all sides. Okay. So what do software fault cost? You can this also can be an impact. This could also be asked at your interview. It would cost a huge loss, a large impact, and inconvenience. So it is the way that you portray it to your during the time of your interview. It is up to you. Okay. Now there is one question from Sahil Sharma. Let me just read out for you guys about the question how to overcome. Okay, Sahil, your question is incomplete. Okay, please again tell about the question how to overcome. Okay, so he's asking about how to overcome all the mistakes or the communication, I think he's talking about. See, whenever you go for a client's meeting in understanding your requirement specification, or to know whether you are on the right track in testing your applications or not. So whenever you go for a meeting, ensure you are taking minutes of the meeting with your client or with your project management. See, client will always remember the communication is coming to the tester. Either it could be you'll be the third party, or you can be the fourth party. The reason is, one is that I'll tell you how the hierarchy works sometimes in the companies. Let me just take my notepad. So see here, one is from the client. Secondly, there would be another BA, business analyst, and then comes your project management, or your project lead, or your project manager, whoever it is, and then it comes to a tester. Okay, so a communication, what client would have told you as A, okay, it could have been misinterpreted by the BA as AA. Okay, then whatever comes to project manager, you would have heard it saying I. Okay, and when it comes to tester, you would have misunderstood saying I. You understood where the miscommunication goes wrong. What actually a customer is asking for, he's asking for boss, give me A. And what BA has understood, you would have understood A. Oh, he's asking A. Then project manager, due to some accent problem or cultural differentiation, he would have understood it is I. And tester would have said, you would have understood as I. You understood? So what you should do to overcome all this problem is prepare a minutes of meeting, what is happening in the meeting, and secondly, send out a mail to the client or to the peer project manager. Send a mail to your project manager, CC to your client, seeking for clarification. My understanding is this. Is this wrong or right? Is this right or wrong? You got it? So what is your understanding? Understood. Narrate it. I understood the output should be I. Okay, I'll tell you why you are ceasing the client. So you are saying, send out a mail to PM saying, sir, my my underst I understood the output should be II, and now you're saying, is this right or wrong? Okay, then tell them, please correct me if I am wrong. You understood? So what happened, since you have put this client also in CC, perhaps your PM will say, no boss, it is on, you he would respond you PM's letter, I'll tell you PM's response. Okay, he will say, no, it's I. And sure, even when PM is responding, client is also there in CC. Okay, client in CC. So now, since client is also in CC, then client will give back. So client would say, boss, it is not, it's neither, you would send a mail, it's neither II nor I, but it's AI need. You understood? So your communication plays a very important role in this picture to overcome all these barriers. So just see the flow what I have written. So you have seen the minutes of the client said A and BA interpreted to AA. Project manager said I and you got it interpreted to II. Now assume if you would have released the product with an output II, what would be the impact? So the impact would be there is a huge loss, there is an inconvenience, there is an impact across everywhere. So this type of mail with a CC of your PM and your client or a BA will make things work very comfortable, and you will have your clarifications every now and then. Some safety critical systems have been imposed. Okay, like for example, defect in aeroplane function software can lead to air crash. So there are many air crash we have been hearing now very often now and then. Okay, so it is because of some software problem that would have resulted in this kind of air crash. So I read one article to handle this crash and so on. It's not only the airfield. This kind of risk assumptions, okay, or what risk mitigation they say. What would happen if this kind of things happen? What we can do if there is a defect, a similar manner happens, and what is a necessary pre-measure step that I can take? Let me give a live example. See, you must have heard this Malaysian Airlines was shot down by the Ukraine terrorists. Okay, and you also saw, and there was no whereabout by the Malaysian Airlines, which got disappeared in the Indonesian Ocean. And same thing happened with Air France and many things, right? We still nothing is ruled out how this air crashes happen. So I read one article which Israel had come up with anti-missile technology. So any missile that is shot to there, especially against this Israeli airlines, and there is some kind of a sound that has been produced outside the aircraft, and that would detect any missile attack, that any missile that comes to that air crash. Okay, so they have found out one safety critical system, and any missile that is targeted to their airlines while on the board, and that would misguide the missile and it will burst, it seems, automatically. So that is a kind of safety critical system. So how do I term it here and test in the testing set? Here we can call it as exception handling. Okay, what is this exception handling? If it is S, what should happen? If it is no, what should happen? You will be, without breaking the system, you are trying to do some exception handling or a safety critical measures that you are taking here. See, any kind of defect in train operating system can lead to a major train accidents, and defect in radiation treatment devices can kill patients. You understood? So all these kinds of any defect, that is, be it a healthcare, be it a train, or be it a aircraft or anything. So any defect that are identified, that could cause any mass destruction. So to overcome all this, we always have to ensure there is a kind of safety critical systems are being handled in our applications or not. That's what an exception handling. Since there are developers, they should be aware of this terminology, exception handling. Okay. Now, what are the principles of testing? I'm just moving ahead. Now, what is the principles of testing? So testing shows the presence of defect. If you are a tester, your presence should show defect. Okay, but don't use this in your family life. There is always in India now the divorce rate is going up and high because either they are finding fault in one another. The husband is blaming the wife and the wife is blaming the husband. Okay, but that should not be in the real time scenario in our family life, but that should be found in our day-to-day life of the software testing. Okay, so testing shows not your presence. As a tester, your presence should show defects. Secondly, an exhaustive testing is impossible. See, you may wonder when I should start and when I should when I should exit. Okay, so and you can have a timeline. Either you can use it by the time frame, the deadline what the client has provided you, or you can wind up your testing with a confidence that you have tested all the requirements that are provided by the client. Okay, or thirdly, it depends on the budget, how much it has been allocated for your testing. Okay, so never think that I can do exhaustive testing, I can do this and that, because all these three things can control your testing. So exhaustive testing is impossible. And thirdly, the principle of testing, early testing is always better. What is that early testing? See, today I give you a document to you all about manufacturing a water bottle. Okay, so since the water bottle is not yet come to my hand, the product has not yet come to me for testing. Okay, so what I can do, since they have already given me the document saying that the bottle should be of this shape, the bottle should be containing this much of water, the quantity of the water. Okay, and the water bottle should be made of this particular plastic. It should also have a cap on top of that. Since they have all given you on the written in the document and given to you, you can always write a test note or a test case saying the shape of the bottle. You can mention saying check whether the size of the bottle is width is so much, height is so much, and it is this much. Okay, and then ensure there is a cap, either a twisting cap or a press button is there. Okay, however the requirements are. So ensure there is a cap on top of that. Ensure there is a label of the company. Ensure the water bottle meets the customer expectation. Ensure this water bottle consists only of water. What would happen? And negative testing. What would happen if I pour a petrol or a fuel in that? You understood? So these are the kind of testing that you'll have to do based on the requirement document. You understood? So that is what is the early testing. I will see in much detail when we come when I cover in the other chapters. See, exhaustive testing is nothing but we have some data combinations which are used for testing. See, that's why I told you a very better example. Like we use this calculator where I can just enter only and for example, that integer value, remember I used it minus 35 to 676 plus 35,000 to 768. Okay, 787. So you will not be able to give one after the other number and try to do a checking. So that's why I tell you there is a methodology, we call it as boundary value analysis techniques that we use to do this. You understood? So that's a exhaustive testing, which you cannot do that. If you assume that you have a program like 1 to 100 should be tested, you can't be going and testing all the 1 to 100 numbers. You understood? So what you do, either you test minus 0, what would happen if I give minus 0, what would happen if I give 1, and what would happen if I give 100, what would happen if I give minus 101. So your testing is complete. This is the methodology. Okay, so exhaustive testing is what you are testing all 1 to 100 is impossible because your timelines, your budget, and it also what is it, your stress you'll on in giving input on all the values is impossible. So we make a methodology of boundary value analysis and do our testing. We saw early testing, and then now defect clustering. What is that defect clustering? So defect clustering, it is a see, now I told you this, gave you an example of this water bottle. Since you are writing some test cases, I mean, you are just coming up your way of methodology with an assumptions based on the requirement document. These are all the things that I have to test. Okay. So what we can do is, this defect clustering is nothing but, since I told you what would I happen if I pour a petrol, what would I pour if I pour some chemical waters to this bottle, whether it is withstanding or not, or it is the plastic itself is getting melted or diluted, whatever is happening. So this defect clustering is nothing but you are trying to discover certain defects even before the application comes into your hand. Okay. Or defect clustering, we can call it as a small number of modules contains most of the defects discovered during the pre-release. Before the pre-release itself, you are trying to discover the clusters of the defects. What would happen if I pour this chemical water? What would happen if I pour water? What would happen if I pour petrol? You understood? So this is called as the defect clustering. So pesticide paradox. What is this paradox? See, for example, we'll be doing repeated testings again and again. For example, assume there is a product that has come already and it is moving on. It is working on. Okay, so now there are some enhancements for this particular project. So let's take this calculator example. Let's say calculator example. In the first module, they came up with, guys, the reason I'm taking this calculator module is because it will be easy for you to understand. Okay, so that you can correlate. In module 1, they said we are coming up with this standard calculator. Now, so standard calculator is moved out, and for the 6 months it is in the production. Now after 6 months, now comes the company is coming up, we want to introduce this scientific calculation. Okay, calculation. Here in the standard calculation, there is something called, they will take up some basic test cases. Okay, basic test cases for regression testing. Okay, you may not understand what is regression testing. I'll come. Give me a minute. I'm sorry guys, I have a bad throat, so I just muted. Now you have some basic test cases called regression testing, or okay, or yeah, or let me, yeah. So what I do in the regression testing, I'll be picking up some high level test cases, like for example addition, 1 or 2 addition test cases, subtraction, so numbering something, or and then square root, finding the square root. Okay, I'll tell you why do we need to do this. We'll see, have a deep dive session when I teach you on the regression testing. Okay, so these are the basic. We may not do an extensive or exhaustive testing, addition and subtraction and square root. Just wanted to understand the basic functionality is working or not. So we identify few test cases when we are doing, when this calculator application comes to our hand. Okay, or when it is in the production. So now what has happened, now the client is saying after 6 months we want to introduce this scientific calculation. You understood? So now when scientific calculation is also ready, now it is all set to merge. Okay, you need to understand it is merging. In one application we are merging the standard and scientific. You understood? So when I merge the scientific and standard into one application, we have to ensure to run this test cases again to ensure that it is not impacting anything on this output. You understood? Again and again. So as long as you had only now forget about the scientific calculation, it was not there. So usually what you do whenever there is a defect fix or whenever there is some enhancements on the standard calculator, they'll be running out this same regression test cases to ensure the functionality is the same or not. Now assume since they have come up with this module, new module, scientific calculation, now your test cases will have more weightage because you have seeing this is not impacting the this scientific calculation module is not impacting the result which are there in standard calculator. You understood? So this is one criteria. Secondly, after scientific calculation they are coming up with module 3. So what you do now, you will pick up some test cases from scientific calculation, like for example I want to find out sine theta. Okay, I don't know what is the symbol here, sine theta, let's put it like this, and cos theta, some basic. So what you will do, until and unless it comes, you will be testing this number of test cases. Okay, and now they are coming up with a third module, let's say unit conversion. Okay, converting the units. So what you do, every time they'll come up with new things. So once when they come up here, so what we need to do is your test cases on the regression testing will have to keep adding the number of test cases to ensure there is proper flow and there is no impact on any of the application. That is what is called as a paradox testing. So what we call, let me just put it in another way, the same kind of test cases are repeated again and again, and the same test cases will produce the same result. Now since we have scientific calculation, in the scientific calculation what I'm going to do now in the paradox pesticide, I would be saying sine theta, now please take a look carefully, plus cos theta. I'm saying, I'm just giving an example. So what is happening now, I'm just updating my test cases saying, boss, now clubbing up both standard calculator and scientific calculator, I'm updating my test cases to find out the scientific calculation and also including the functionality of the standard calculator. I'm using plus here. You understood? So now again tan theta minus sine theta. So what you're using now, you have updated your test cases clubbing up the scientific functionality as well as the scientific standard functionality. So this is what is called as paradox pesticides, which is very important to review, which means we need to review the test cases regularly to ensure the application is not impacted at any cost. You understood what I mean? Let me repeat again, perhaps if you're not understood. As long as we had standard calculator, we have some basic functional test cases that we will use to addition, subtract, and square root. Now since we have introduced the scientific calculation, I have written some basics only on scientific calculation to find out what is sine theta and cos theta. Now since we have this second module, what I'm saying, I'm just trying to club up the test cases to see the functionalities are working together. You understood? So where I'm using sine theta on scientific calculation and I'm using the functionality of addition and subtraction. You understood? So if you just keep doing this, you may not have a test cases which is combined each together and to have the result produced. In other words, you are just seeing whether the result of the test cases where it is combining the scientific calculation and standard calculation gives the proper or correct output or not, is called as the pesticide paradox. You understood? The same kind of tests are repeated again and again, and the same test cases will no longer will be able to find new bugs. You understood? So what I am trying to do to overcome this pesticide paradox, so why is this word terminology comes is because, see, you are trying to introduce a new functionality which is called scientific calculation. You understood? So this new scientific will bring you out some pesticides or pestilences, which would, in other words, which can create some havoc in your standard calculator. So to avoid this, what I'm trying to do, I'm combining both the functionalities together and preparing one test cases, which I said sine theta plus tan theta is what. You understood? So to overcome this, it is really very important to review the test cases regularly, and new and different tests have to be written for the potentiality or the reliability of the software is what called as pesticide. Okay, now testing in context depending, principles of testing. So context depending driven we saw earlier, where we use some methodologies like boundary value analysis in trying to find do a testing the ranges of the number. You understood? So, or you can also for example, different kind of sites which are tested in different other operating system or in other browsers. Okay, so we make some methodologies to do all these kinds of testing. For example, in Windows operating system, you have all the cookies. In today's version in Google Chrome, all the cookies can be disabled, and where it will not store. In Mac, you will not have the cookies stored at all, is what I believe. I haven't used the Mac. Okay, so so what you are trying to do here is you are trying to do a safety and a critical software or a method to understand that your software is not impacted at all. So for example, let me take the simple example I'll take. Let's take this 1 to 50 range. So if you give -1, it is a negative testing, correct? Or you are trying to break down your system. And if you give if you give 60, what happens? You are growing across the range. You got it? So that's the reason we said we used a boundary value analysis, which is an other methodology that we use. Okay, it's called the context depending. What is this absence of error fallacy? See, system is built, and if it is unusable, okay, and if the system is not meeting the client's requirement or the specification, which means continuing your testing on that application is worthless. You understood? So that is what is called as absence of errors fallacy. Let me repeat. You have built up a system which has become unusable, okay, and because the reason is because it is not fulfilling the demand or the expectation of the client. And if you're trying to use that worthless application to find faults, there is no use on that. It is not going to help you off. So that is what is called as absence of error fallacy. Okay, now comes a very important terminology that we use in testing: verification and validation. See, verification and validation. What is that verification and validation? Verification is nothing but it depends on all the documents. See, any phase that we start with the requirements phase that we get from the customer. If I should put you in other words, it is a manual which is first prepared by the client. Okay, manual specification. So what is that? In verification, you are preparing a document, and for that document, as I told you earlier, based on an assumptions, based on your document, the requirement that has been provided from the client, you'll be trying to do some verification. What would happen this? What would happen that? What would happen if I put a value this? And what would be the output? What if I put a non-value or a ASCII code? What are those things? So you'll be trying to do some reviews, or based on your assumptions, you'll be writing some test cases. So in verification, if I should put in a separate in a one-liner, verification talks about, are we building the product in the right way? You understood? So assume that one client have given you the manual specification, and it has come for a review for you guys, or a BA. So you can always provide your suggestions, or you can always give an alternative solutions. Why don't we put like this? So you can give, if the refrigerator should have a they would come up with saying we can have refrigerator only 2 pinpoints. Okay, 2 pinpoints for the plug. So you can obviously come and say, no, if you give a 2 pinpoints, that would have a interruption if there is no earth wire or something like that. So it is better to have a 3 pinpoint where you will have a stability, and you can have the refrigerator running continuously, and there will not be any stoppage, and so on. Okay, so this you are doing at the document level. Okay, that is what is called as the verification. So let me just repeat again in one word. Verification is nothing but before the actual product comes into your hands, based on the document, you are verifying whether we are going to build the product in the right way or not. Clear? So what is that validation? Validation is nothing but this is taking place after the product comes in your hand. or after an application comes into your hand, you are trying to do a testing, is called as the validation. So validation in single one liner, if I should say, did I build the right product, is called as validation. Okay, so now there is a question from Sahil. Sir, you are using term test case many times. So what is a test case exactly? So okay, it's a good question. Let me tell you. See, test case is nothing but you're going to do some testing. Okay, some functionality level of testing that you're going to do. It is you are writing it in a sentence. So for example, now let me see. I'll be covering in the next session. So for example, for so you want to check the functionality of addition. Okay, so how are you going to test? If I ask you orally, you will say two values put together, I should get the result. It should sum up, correct? So if I should put it in the word, if I make it a sentence, what I should do? So I can say verify whether two values summed up gives right output. Okay, or this is one way of writing. Secondly, you can say, let's have this calculator. I'm saying enter first, click on 5, then click on 4. Okay, then click on plus the condition. Now you are writing your condition saying verify whether the answer is 9. Okay, so this is what you are writing in the sentence, as in the form of a sentence or in the form of a document. I'm just giving a very brief this one explanation just to understand and to go ahead. Okay, this we'll see a deep dive session in the next session, maybe tomorrow. Okay, so verify whether two values summed up gives a right output. So whatever the condition that you are writing and whatever the things that you're going to check or test, that which you have put up in a sentence is called as a test case. So verification is nothing but it is happening before the product comes into your hand, and validation happens after the product comes to your hand. When I say after it comes to your hand, I'm not talking about the release after the production. I'm saying the product that comes for testing. Okay, so now let's move on. What do we do here in on a detailed manner? I've explained you. So in verification focuses on process related activities. Okay, all the process, so or the product that which is built before. Okay, uh, is what all the documents that we get in our hand is what we do in verification. That is, I am just checking out, are we going to build the product in the right way? Okay, so what and all is happening here? There are few reviews that will happen. Technical review can be done through technical review, business review, and management review. Technical review is what they'll be saying. Some will come up with a suggestion. They'll say, let's use this particular application, let's use Java, and some would come up and suggest saying, let's use Power Builder, and some will come up and say backend will use let's say Oracle, and some would suggest no, Oracle will cost you a lot, let's go for an Access. You understood? So this is what people they will try to say, and that what we do, then the team will do a review. So what would be the budget involved in that, and how much is the budget being allocated for that? You understood? So all those things will be taken into picture, and then they will do a technical review. Okay, and then because in technical review there are many things would happen. It would be a cost, it would be your licensing version, and it would be the number of users that would be allowed to use. So all those things will be clubbed together in technical review. Then now in business review, what is happening in business review? So that in business review they would have come up with saying, so the flow of the context or the flow of the transaction should be like this. For example, let me take the banking example. Okay, first we ensure the account summary is displayed on the first column. Second screen, let there be a mini statement. Third column, let it be a detailed statement. So they would have come up with the other domain, the functionality level on the business review. Okay, so in business review, then they would come up and suggest saying business analyst will come. No, no, no. Your custom statement or a customized statement should be like this. It should have from date and to date. And assume that they would have said, since from the day the account is opened, you can give a customized statement. So that would take a lot of time, right? So what BA would come and suggest you saying, no, if you give the from the beginning of time until today, it will take more time. System will go hang. So let's restrict to 6 months. So all these things will be talks will happen during this requirements page. Okay, based on the requirement document. Thirdly, management review. Management review, what they will come? Okay, management review will come and say, okay, for development, I want this many number of teams, this many number of developers, and for tester, this many number of testers I require. In the testers, what is the hierarchy you want? For 3 testers, I want one project lead. For this module, I want this one. And what would be the salary? What is the number of the resource that you're going to do? So all those things will happen during this management review. So where it happens, it all happens during the verification stage. Okay. Now, in validation, what happens in validation? Validation, as I told you, the validation happens once when the product comes into your hands. It starts your validation. So focuses on product related activities. What is that? We attempt to determine if the system or project deliverables meet the customer or client's expectation. How it can be done through? It can be done through testing. It is only through testing we'll be doing this validation.